Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all fit and well. Hope you're a good weekend, particularly those fathers among you. And I realise I've just said God morning to Mr. Hare over at Northern Track. It should be good morning. It's Monday morning. What can I tell you? Before you start playing anything, I can tell you Kobelcos is hot. I'm inclined to agree with you. But wait, what? Hold your horses. Let me run back through the chat very quickly. Who was here first? 5:46 this morning was Dan Cullen. He also saw the preview photograph that I had up as well. You look like Yep Man in Breaking Bad in this one. I've never watched Breaking Bad, so I don't know who that is. F Casterman over in Brazil. Buonadia, is that Portuguese? I can never remember, but good morning all the way to Brazil. Who else have we got here? Peter McKenna, a lot closer to home, is here. Jim Turner is here as well. Good morning to both of you. Andy Hare says, morning. Alas, these Mondays keep rolling around. They do indeed. I'm sure I was sat here on Friday afternoon thinking, well, that's it for another couple of days. Blinked, back at work. Who knew? Steve Williamson is in the house. Morning, Steve. Good of you to join us. And there's Gary Muirhead, our resident quizmaster as well. Peter McKenna was saying the Hyundai that he's on is very skittish. Very skittish. Don't get a lot of skittish excavators on here. Lee Bear Dumper. No, it's not. I will get to the mystery machine in just a moment. Couple of things. Mark Fitz over on Instagram says you can't have Fridays without Mondays. It's a good point. He does have a point. And Jose Bacastro. It could be Jose Sabacastro in Venezuela. Jose, you are our first, well, as far as I know, you're our first viewer in Venezuela. Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Dan Cullen says, I'm on fire today. Love a bloody morning. Well, good morning to you. Top of the morning. Couple of things. We were talking last week about Anne Mackay, whose husband John was killed at Redcar, and we were talking about the possibility of starting a Just Giving page. Turns out it already exists. I don't need to do it. There is one. Woodson's Demolition. Good morning to you. There is one over on. It's basically a Just Giving page, but it's being done by the Lighthouse Club. So if you bear with me 1 second, if anyone would like to give to that fund, I can make that happen right now. There you are. You should see a Just Giving link over there right about now. It was originally set up, as far as I can tell, it was set up by a guy called Matt Thackeray, who is of the industry. They originally set out to raise 500 quid. They're at 575 now. And one of the things that struck me about that, I had a very quick look while I was getting ready for the show this morning. All of the donations are, there's 20 quid here and 50 quid there. All of them from working folks like ourselves. Bearing in mind the cost of living crisis, bearing in mind how hard life is at the moment for everybody, and yet those people have dug deep. They've found 10 quid, 20 quid, 50 quid to give to somebody who quite possibly they've never met. And yet, the companies, those that are sat on the millions, the trade associations that are sat on the millions, nothing at all. Incidentally, I'll come back to that very notion in just a moment. My latest column has dropped this morning. It's called Suicide Watch. I'll give you 3 guesses about what it's about. It is basically talking about the fact that a couple of years ago, when it became very clear that the UK demolition and construction industry had an issue with mental health and a suicide, rather than choosing to do something about it, the industry basically said, yes, we'll be aware. We'll be more aware. We will analyze this situation from afar. We won't do anything, but we will watch it from afar. Well, that's what they've done. And 2 years later, 1,400 people are dead. And I reckon we're edging ever closer to 1,000 suicides in a year by the time the 2023 figures are released. I posted that link, that article this morning, and somebody came back to me on LinkedIn and told me I was being negative. I'm trying to think. Can anybody think of a positive to take from 1,400 deaths by suicide? roughly 40 a year from actual site accidents, thousands of deaths by asbestos related diseases. Am I missing something? Should I be positive about that? I'm not seeing it. I'm really not seeing it at all. Who else do we have here? Yes, it's amazing how people get together and help. And yes, companies won't support a person over their failures, but they throw thousands to charities. Yeah, they do. Phil Hayden just joined us over on Instagram. Morning, Phil. That is precisely the point. I mean, I've been at demolition events where people have been fined, £50 or £100 or whatever it might be for wearing the wrong tie, and all of that goes to a charitable fund. Rather than doing that, how about sending it to a family or the bereaved widow of somebody that was killed in the industry who is absolutely struggling right now? Would that not be a better idea? I'm going to say good morning to our friend Mick, who says morning all, and the hound says bark woof woof. Well, tell him, bark, woof, woof, right back at him. Gary Muirhead is saying good morning to my other half. I hope she's enjoying her holiday. She most certainly is. Here's a thing with my wife. I mean, she was looking very brown and toasty this morning when I spoke to her on FaceTime. She will sit here on a regular basis. She will sit here on a regular basis and watch one episode after another of some boring crime drama that she's seen before, endlessly. I mean, it's just to the point where I literally sit down of an evening and put my laptop on my lap because I know she's going to have crap on the TV. And on the rare occasions I actually get to the remote control before she sat down and stick the football on, she walks in the room. Now, bearing in mind, at this point, she may have watched 500 hours of crime dramas. She sees 5 minutes of football. Oh, no, not bloody football again. What did she do last night? In Greece, she went to a bar and watched the football. What a bloody liberty, honestly. There is Footy has just joined us. Say woof woof back to your dog. She's having a great time, apparently. I have wine to watch you. Wine? I realise there's a time difference between here and Greece, but it's 8 minutes past 10 and she's on the plunk already. Oh, that's going to be a messy day. Morning, Mr. Saunders, Mr. Muirhead, Mr. McKenna, Mr. Ford, Mr. Turner, and Mr. Cullen as well. One more thing that I do need to tell you about. Suicide Watch. So the article that I was talking about and the prevention of mental health issues. What I've called for, basically, among others, is a change in working practices, being more sensitive to people's actual requirements, rather than sending them to work away and whatever. And, by and large, my calls have fallen on deaf ears. But I thought, just to ring the changes, and bearing in mind I have been accused of being negative this morning, I thought I'd share this with you. Here you go. That is the house builder Waits. They have enhanced their paternity leave policy from 8 weeks to 12 weeks, paid leave for new fathers. Employees can take leave anytime within the first 2 years of the child being born or adopted in flexible blocks. The benefit is available from day one. So literally, if you started work with Waits today and your wife gave birth tomorrow, you are entitled to 12 weeks paid leave. Well, I'm not going to dwell on that for too much longer, but can I just say, Waits, well done, fellas. Well done. Well done indeed. See, I can do positive. Dan Cullen says, I can't watch football. It's Egypt's kicking a leather ball, kicking a leather air ball around for 90 minutes. It is that. I watched 3 games yesterday. Didn't miss a minute. Peter McKenna says, morning, Ruth. Anthony, I hope you're well. Have a great time. Footy says, I don't think they would actually pay anything for me because I couldn't have the kids. So that goes out the window. Okay. Watching machines is more therapeutic than football in that case. Should we get on to that? Mick says, as I said in the email, Mark, companies may look like they are taking the suicide problem seriously, but as long as it doesn't reflect on them or their costs, yeah. And I don't want to be that guy, but I will point out that the comment that I had about me being negative came from a guy who's employed by a firm that had a fatal accident on one of its sites just a year or two ago. Steve Williamson, Waits, realise there is life over construction. Yes, it's all just a means to an end. We're all just basically here for the food tokens, the beer tokens, and the family tokens. We're just here to pay the bills. We're not here to give our lives to it in any way, shape, or form. So, shall we crack on? Let me take Steve away just for the time being. And let me do what I usually do a bit round about this time, which is roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. I was going to say a very quick morning to Mostly Diggers and to Joe Brown Construction Company as well. Dan Cullen, who has a stopwatch on me. 12 minutes, not bad for you to get started. It's not bad at all, actually. I discovered today, and I don't know quite how I've managed to miss it. Obviously, we've got our Wednesday evening show this week with Gilles from Caterpillar. That starts at 7. It should be an hour, but it's likely to be more. I'm due to pick my wife and daughter up from the airport at 9:10. Going to be a bit of a squeak, I think. Oh, do excuse me. So, yes, where were we? I know where we were. It is Monday, the 17th of June, exactly 1 month before my wife's birthday. See, I do remember. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, the Big Bang of Liberty. Are the latest Kobelco mini excavators hot or not? Caterpillar is in command, which will make complete sense when I show it to you. Wet dozing with Komatsu. Plus, we're looking ahead to Hillhead 2024 in the company of those fine folks at Hyundai, whatever. You take your pick. But before we get to all that, we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine to decipher. And I can tell you, I promised that I would. I have already created a league table that we'll actually put it into operation on the 1st of July, but the league table exists. As it stands at the moment, everyone that's here already has a place on the table, and you're all standing at 0 points. In order for you to move your way up the table, you need to identify mystery machines. So, get a bit of practice in between now and the 1st of July, starting with this. Yeah, let's have a look at our mystery machine for today, shall we? It looks a bit like that. What do you reckon? If anybody suggests that it is a track machine, you go, even though the league table hasn't started yet, you go straight to the bottom. But let's have a look. Let's see what you think. If you think you can identify it from a wheel, then you feel free. Guess away. We'll come back to that in just a moment. And while you're trying to figure that out, why don't I remind you very quickly? Mostly Digger says bang of Wackernoisen off that. Not sure what that means, but if you're guessing the mystery machine, it's not exactly a Wackernoisen. Don't know if that will help or not. But while you're figuring that out, let me quickly remind you of our question of the day. Right. Okay. So the Wackernoisen thing does appear to be a bit of a thing. It's kind of not. I mean, it isn't, but it'll make sense in a second. Steve Williamson says a Wackernoisen dumper. Tis not. Dan Cullen says a Wackernoisen 6-ton cab dumper. Tis not one of those either. And Footy says it's a road sweeper. It's none of those things. Peter McKenna reckons it's a Yanmar V7. It's not. And Dave Wilder, morning Dave, says a rubber duck. It is not even one of those. Plenty of guesses still to come. Tell you what, let me bring it I tell you what, let me just tidy up my screen here, get rid of that. Let me show you the machine again. And now you have, yes, isn't that a dead giveaway, eh? That's what you've got to work with. Gary Muirhead has gone for a Wacker Neuson DV60. It's not. It's not. I can't actually tell you any more without giving the game away. Let me put it like this. I saw one of these, or a derivative of it, at the Wacker Neuson factory. It's not a Wacker Neuson. Dan Cullen is going for a Thwaites rather, E9165 FT dumper. No, it's not a forward tip dumper at all. Dave Wilden is going for a Bobcat. Footy is going for a miniature loading shovel. Ooh, you're in the right market. You're in the right sector. Let's put it like that. But yes, I still need makes and models, if you would be so kind. So yes, our question of the day comes once again from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead, and his question is this: what is the habit that you're proudest of breaking, or that you would love to break? Mine, nice and simple: booze. Yes, it does mean that I'm always the designated driver. And yes, it does mean that I get to nurse a Diet Coke while others are getting messy all around me. But it also means I get to wake up in the morning with a clear head and a fully functioning liver. It's a price I'm willing to pay. So for me, giving up the booze was a proud moment indeed. But what about you? Let us know in the chat. What is a habit that you've broken that you're very proud of having broken? Or what is a habit that you would love to break but haven't actually managed to conquer quite yet? Love to hear from you. Cracking question, Gary. Keep those coming. Yes, let us know in the chat. Got a very quick video for you next, but it's a good one. So come back in just a moment. Right. We have more guesses. Peter McKenna is going for a Liebherr L509. It is not. Chris Ford is going for a Wacker Neuson TH412. It is not one of those. Jake Tarling MX is going for Neuson WL44. It is not, but good guess. As I say, it's definitely not a Wacker. But I saw one at the Wacker factory and it was supposed to be there. Does that tell you anything? And Dan Cullen's going for the Avant 635 loader. It is not. Dan is also going for the Verkoyen. The who now? G2200E shovel. No, it's not one of those, mainly because I've never heard of one of those. What the hell is that? Now, I promised you a very quick video, and very quick video we have. I'd like to get the week started with a bang, and what better way to do it than with this? Just before I play it, keep your eye on the helipad and the way that the whatever this tower thing is lands. If that was planned, that is accuracy. You've got about, let me see, 18 seconds of this video, but it's really good. Bang in the middle. Well done to the team at Liberty and at PDC. PDC did the explosive part of that. Congratulations to them. I think there is a longer video of that coming out, apparently. If and when it drops, I'll be the first to bring it to you, I promise. Going back to the Mystery Machine, Gary Muirhead is going for a Mechalak 6 MDX. It is not. And Peter McKenna is also going for Mechalak, and he's going for the AF 1050. It's not one of those. Let me show you a smidge more. Does that help? Peter McKenna has also gone for the Mechalak again. I'll tell you now, it's not a Mechalak of any description. The AF 1200, it is not. And Dan has gone for the WL10 mini skid steer. It's not a skid steer, and it's not a WL10 either. Peter McKenna still going with Mechalak, even though it's definitely not. Mechalak AS 600. None of those things. None of this is Mechalak, and it's not Wacker Neuson either. Keep the guesses coming. The league table is starting to look like I might be in the lead when it begins, but we shall see. Let's have a look. Footy says definitely a miniature loading shovel. Yeah, Not that miniature, but it's a miniature. Peter McKenna says, kaboom. Kaboom indeed, yeah. Fantastic job, well done. That was a production platform, apparently. Don't know where the blast actually took place, but I stole that from LinkedIn. It was actually sent me on Friday, but I had to make sure that I was permitted to use it before I did. Well, I've finally got around to it. So, yes, I need you to be all judgmental and stuff right about now. I'd like you to break out your hot or not scorecards, because I'm going to be showing you some new mini excavators from those fine folks at Kobelco, and I need you to discern whether you believe them to be hot or not immediately after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
I'm starting to think Dan Cullen may be making these up. A Hoflader mini loader. It's not one of those, and it's most definitely not, what was it you said before? A Vakoyan? It's none of those things. Now, we have somebody who has spotted well, he's not got it at all, but I'll tell you now, Steve Williamson, who is becoming a bit good at this, which is a bit of a worry, he has said it's a Kramer 5055E. It isn't, but you're close. You're dead close. Dead close. Keep the guesses coming, if you would be so kind. Let me I'll tell you what, let me show you a little bit more. There you are. That's a bit more to be working with. I'll take that away because, as I said, I need you to decide whether these new Kobelcos are hot or not. Regardless of the fact that Dan Cullen believes anything that is Kobelco is hot, you decide. You've got 4 minutes to do so, during which hopefully somebody will come up with the right answer on the mystery machine. Here we go.
Kobelco has just released the Series 7 mini excavator range, with new models in the 3 to 4 ton size class available now. Today I'm excited to present to you the all-new SK30SR and SK35SR, the latest models in Kobelco's groundbreaking new Series 7 range. These new machines provide a big step forward with increased performance, improved operability, easier maintenance, and a larger, more modern cabin interior compared to previous models. Their zero tail swing design makes them ideal for operating in limited spaces, making them a really versatile machine in a variety of applications. Operator comfort and safety were key to the development of our new Series 7 minis. These new machines follow Kobelco's Performance X Design concept, which includes a revolutionary new operator station based on the design of our full-size excavators. This makes long hours in the seat much more comfortable for the operator. Kobelco's Series 7 minis also deliver higher performance, thanks to a 6% increase in engine power and larger cylinders providing a massive 16% increase in bucket breakout force. The boom cylinder bore size is also increased by 7%, providing improved lifting capability. And an upgraded hydraulic system delivers improved travel performance and faster combined operation. Fuel efficiency is also improved, thanks to a new Eco mode that provides up to a 25% savings in fuel and reduced carbon emissions. We have here today the closed cabin version of the SK35SR, along with the canopy version of the SK30SR. Let's take a closer look at these machines, the latest in Kobelco's Series 7 lineup. The new Kobelco SK30SR and SK35SR-7 are available now in cab and canopy models at dealers around Australia and New Zealand. You can learn more about these machines at the Kobelco website, that's kobelco.com.au, or kobelco.co.nz, or by getting in touch with your local Kobelco dealer.
Sorry, just a little distracted by the chat there, but I will tell you now. I think that one's going forward to the grand final, which will be later in the year, around about beginning of December, I would say, because I think that's been almost universally well received. I know Footy has said it is only lukewarm, but Steve Williamson says, I wish I'd had small machines like these years ago. Lucky to get a radio in some, absolutely. Peter McKenna says, looks well easy to maintain. Gary Muirhead goes with hot. Dan Cullen says, nice kit, that Kobelco. Mexican chili hot. That's hot indeed. Mick says anything Kobelco is hottish. Always like them. You and me both. Decent cab space, says Peter McKenna. Peter McKenna also says sculpture. Steve says hot, but not as hot as Greece. My good lady wife has just sent me my daughter actually has just sent me a photograph of my wife on a sun lounger. Glass of wine in one hand, phone with me on it on the other. Best watch my P's and Q's then, hadn't I? Mick Norton, Kobelco's emphasis on reinforced dozer blade, ? Not sure what that's about. Now, let me see. I can tell you we do actually have a winner of our mystery machine. Let's have a look. Let me go back to where we were. Steve was the first to spot the right make. He said it was a Kramer 5055E. It's not a Devellon, not a Kramer 5035, not a Kramer K112, not a 5040. Not a Terex TXL 760, not a Kramer K138.8, none of those things, not a KT 55.7, not a Kramer 25.5T, not a Gel AL 530, but if I go all the way down to the very end here, a certain Mr. Cullen, he of the hats, has correctly identified our mystery machine today as one of those. It's a Kramer 5085, and I'll prove it to you. Bear with me. There we are. That right there is a Kramer 5085, and the reason it was a genuine clue. Kramer apparently, I didn't realize this, but Kramer apparently is now part of the Wacker Neuson family, still sold under the Kramer name. But when I was over at Wacker last year, I think it was last year, maybe in the year before, but yes, Kramer were out in force there as well. So yeah, Dan Cullen, if the league table had started, you would already be at the top, but it hasn't, so you're not. Jim Turner, going back to the Kobelco, says, looks sound enough. The proof is in the cab comfort, leg and arm space, and the power. Totally true. Now, I'll come back to the question of the day at the end. Steve, basking in some reflected glory, says, I planted the seed. Less said about what you do at the weekends. I think he's probably better. The old Kobelco mini excavator could take some hammer with minimum of add-ons, says Mick Norton. As I say, huge fan of the Kobelco brand. I came for the colour, but I stayed for the quality. Absolutely true. We've got some good stuff to show you still. So stick around. I'll be back in just a moment. Now, I'm about to show you something. I won't dwell on it because there's something I'd like to discuss with you about it afterwards. So here's a new film on the CAT command system from, well, not surprisingly, CAT. As I say, stick around because I'd like to have a chat about this just as soon as it's over.
Hi, I'm Jeff Piro, Application Specialist for CAT Command. And I'm Carter Gibbons, demonstrator instructor for Caterpillar.
So what we're going to highlight today is the 340 excavator running with Cat Command. So Carter is running this, but he's also using Cat Grade 3D. Previously, we've showed two-dimensional with the depth and slope, the standard feature found on these machines. This is the next layer of technology that we have in here. So the importance of this also, as he's doing this trenching application, is getting that accuracy, getting down to that 10 millimeters or so accuracy. If he's doing a trench that's perhaps 1,000 feet, keeping that consistency is very important. Another nice feature with this is he's not as reliant on his cameras to find where his depth is. He can look at his 22-inch monitor here and see as he's getting closer to grade and help achieve that grade with greater accuracy. Less time, can be more productive by doing this. Another important thing with this would be if he's trying to get something to drain, if he's working in an underwater type application where the bucket is submerged, you can't see it, this really helps being able to do that. So as he comes in his last pass, he's using his autos by triggering on his left hand, pulls the trigger, and he just sticks in, and it gives it the autos. This feature is now compatible with Cat Command. To learn more about Cat Command or any of our other technology offerings, contact your local Cat dealer.
Now, I'll come back to that in just a moment. I want to say goodbye to Peter McKenna and to Dan Cullen, who are both going back to work. Steve says, "Oh look, GPS and AI won't work. Talk can zip it. Cat are another great company looking not to the future, but now." He says, "I totally agree." Here's the thing, though. There was two things about that video. The first was the talk about it being able to work underwater, not the system itself, but if you're working in an underwater application, you can't see the bucket. That idea of being able to control precisely your grade and everything else, fantastic. I thought that was a great idea. But here's the point. I'm sure there are men and women in this industry that chose the life of an equipment operator because they didn't fancy being cooped up in an office all day long. And yet, in the future, that might be precisely where they find themselves. Your thoughts, people? Would you relish not having to trudge across muddy sites in the pouring rain? Or would you prefer an office environment? Or would that make you feel claustrophobic? Let us know in the chat. It's a very, very different way of looking at things, I think. Come back to all of that good stuff on the question of the day in just a moment. But first, we need a smidge of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I just mentioned underwater applications. What I'm about to show you isn't strictly an underwater application, but it's pretty close. like pushing water uphill, like dozing soup. But as Dan Cullen says, what kit? Yeah, absolutely right. So we have two sides of the same argument here. I'm going to start with Steve Williamson. Says, I was asking the question about whether you would be willing to work a CAT command system in a nice air-conditioned office somewhere miles away from site. He says, but we are technically in an office with a tight space. Why not operate in a bigger office with access to toilets to have proper breaks? I'm not saying, yes, get me in that cabin, but can see the good rather than the bad. At least in some cases, you have other operators next to you that you can interact with, maybe help with the stress and mental health. Not amazing, but can see the benefits. I still like to be in the machine for the time being, he says. Okay. I think that counts as a pro remote working. And there's the other side. Jim Turner says it's all add-ons and settings nowadays that are on machines. I find I don't want or need. Manufacturers need to start selling base models that are cheaper and simpler and will have less to go wrong. Two sides of the same argument, people. Mick says, here we go. Just had a note put through my door from the management company in my flat saying I've got an XL bully. Fuck me, Ted has been called a lot of names, but never that. Think I walked to their office in order to show them what a lovely, friendly dog he is. So many bleeding nosy gits about, and who knows sod all about dogs. Incidentally, on the subject of XL bullies, and I'm coming at this from a dog-loving standpoint, I pulled into a petrol station about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago, and there was a guy filling his car up, and he had a what was clearly an XL bully in the back of his car. And I what is the expression? I shit you not. This thing had a head like that. So I said to the guy, is that an XL bully? And he went, yes. And I said, no, not to be critical. What's he like? And he went, come here. He opened the boot. My God, I could have drowned in drool. What a slobbery, big, soppy git this thing was. Absolutely gorgeous dogs. So there you are. I'm not buying into this XL bully things. There are only good dogs, but there's lots of shit dog owners. That's what I'd say. Komatsu had remote controlled underwater dozer D155 that could work in 23 feet of water, assisted with a huge snorkel. That is true. That is very true. In actual fact, there are dozers that work even further underwater than that, with hoses back up to the surface. Unfortunately, them days are gone, says Steve. I think that's in answer to Jim Turner wanting stripped down, bare boned machines. Mick says it's not the dog, mate, it's the bloody owners. It is. And I don't understand the idea. You know, if you're going to do that, why not have an alligator? If you're gonna be that big a dick walking your dangerous animal, you know, that you require to be dangerous, go and get an alligator. See how you fare with that. But yeah, as I say, I met face to face. I had drool in my hair. I met an XL bully face to face. What a big soft git he was. Absolutely gorgeous dog. Right, people, I'll be back in just a moment because I do need to tell you that obviously Hillhead is but 8 days away now. So let's have a bit of this. Yeah, Hillhead is almost upon us. It is 8 days away. In fact, tomorrow will be the 7-day countdown to the show opening its doors. Obviously looking forward to seeing the likes of Liebherr and Hitachi and Bobcat and Komatsu and all of the others. But I shall also be paying a visit to Hyundai. This isn't a preview of what they're showing at Hillhead. At least I don't remember it being that. It may well be. I don't know. I can't remember. But Hyundai will be at Hillhead. Go and see them.
We're House Mining and Aggregates, LLC is our company name. My name is Joe House. I've been excavating for about 20 years. I used to have a little gravel spot in this property a long time ago. I started growing bigger and bigger, and eventually we just decided to go for it. So I bought the property, and we've been here for 6 years. My father, he's a primary loader operator. And then my son also is here when he's not in school, and he loves this business. He loves doing it. So between the three of us, we can get a lot done, and we can get a lot of arguments done. Bought a Hyundai loader 955 3 years ago from Tracy Road Equipment. I definitely like the fit and finish and the comforts in the Hyundai loader. It gets pretty hot here. We're in a dry sandbox. The AC, no problems. The heat in the winter, no problems. Ride control's good when you have to get across the gravel pit fast. It's a very smooth machine. It operates smooth. It's not jerky like some of the other brands are. Another thing that we like about this Hyundai loader is it's powered by a 5.9 Cummins engine. Very fuel efficient. Averages around 2.2 gallons per hour. Easy access to engine compartment and all the filters. Everything is very accessible. I don't have a bad thing to say about it. We're going to buy another one, actually. Tracy's support is second to none with it. I mean, any issues we've ever had, it's been fixed same day, or we'll be there first thing in the morning. We've been in the middle of the woods and had a machine go down, and they come out and truck through the woods to our machine to get us going. Tracy's has called me before and say, hey, there's a cord on your machine, your X, Y, and Z filter needs to be changed, I'll send one up. It doesn't get any better than that. So I will continue to buy at Tracy Road Equipment 100%.
Building a comfortable tomorrow.
So, on the subject of all things Hyundai related, Steve Williamson says, Digger Girl showed what's coming at Hillhead. I'm sure he means it on the Hyundai stand. She's a big one. He says, I wouldn't know. She is one of those that she's lovely. I do need to keep emphasizing, but she does a different job to me. It's of no interest to me what she does. So I've unfollowed her. So I don't know, but I'll take your word for that. Dan Cullen says Hyundai went downhill when the range came with electric levers. Very jumpy and, in my opinion, a pile of crap. Anybody got any more thoughts on that? And Ken Hatcher has joined us late because he was taking a competence test this morning. Not that he should need to, because I think we all know that he's very, very competent, but he's passed his test and he's here. He is here. Dan Cullen says it's a 950 Hyundai. What is? I don't know what that relates to. Mick Norton, going back to the CAT command system. With 10mm tolerance is good technology, but to have the same guys working from an office miles from the site, no, he says. If anybody's read my book, Demolition 2051, that was one of those things that I actually predicted would happen at some point in the future. That's what I predicted would happen at some point in the future. Rather than getting your hard hat and your high vis on and going to a wet, muddy site, you'd go to an air-conditioned office, you'd grab yourself a cup of coffee from the vending machine, you'd sit yourself in your simulator, kind of simulator, but like the CAT command system, and you'd go to work. If you haven't read it, it's available over on where is it available? Amazon. Yes, it's available over on Amazon. Hillhead, it's a 950. They're showing a 950 at Hillhead, I think is what we're saying here. Nearly every excavator now has gone electric handles. But there are it's the same as there were with hydraulics and everything else. There are electrics and there are electrics. There are hydraulics and there are hydraulics. Even somebody as poor behind the levers as I am, I can tell. Sometimes Kobelco was the last one. I drove a Kobelco hybrid machine for a wee while, and it was like, man alive, this is just better. It's very different, very, very responsive, but so much different. Yeah, really felt the difference on that. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. Anyway, I'm going to come back in a moment, talk about charitable donations, talk about working remotely ish, and talk about anything else you feel like as well. I'm also going to address the question of the day. Before I get to that, let me quickly throw this one up. I know a guy with 50 years on machines that works for the same company. He said the electric handles get a bit of getting used to. He said there's less movement to work the machine and light on the wrist. Said he can't fault it. Said it's lots better. Each to their own. Each to their own. Ken Hatcher, JCB steel hydraulic servos. Do excuse me. Mick says was working at the weekend. They have an old default baler in the yard. It was being serviced over Saturday and Sunday. Jesus, I've seen some fitters work, but this mob had tools I've never seen. They changed all the hydraulic pipes in 4 hours. Size of them was unreal, he says. Caterpillar now use electric servos as well, says Ken Hatcher, bringing us fully up to date. So, yes, I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat. See what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please do stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back with the Craic immediately after this final word from our key show sponsor. Here we go. Let me just take that music up a touch. Yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds about right. There was one I want. There was a comment here I want to go back to. Where is it? Where is it? Here we are. I think this is the one. So Steve Williamson. This is, as I say, I wrote an article back end of last week. It came out today. It's called Suicide Watch, and it's talking about, not surprisingly, suicide within the industry and also about the mental health crisis that is currently gripping the UK demolition and construction industry. And one of the things that keeps coming up time and time again is the issue of isolation and loneliness. Now, without getting overly detailed on this, having been down this road with mental health issues, I actually, one of the worst elements of it was that feeling of loneliness. And I could even experience loneliness in a room of 400 people, most of whom I knew, which is weird and strange and doesn't make any sense, but that was absolutely the truth. And there is this concern about isolation, people working on their own. And I think when you think about isolation normally, you think about a physical isolation. So maybe you're working alone on a site on your own. That doesn't necessarily mean that. And I think Steve's picked up on that. If you think about your working day, and I realise this would change from operator to operator, from site to site, and everything else. But by and large, you arrive for work. Maybe you'll have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee with the lads you're working with or the lasses you're working with, and then you'll go and jump in your machine. And you might do 4 or 5 hours completely on your own. Maybe you'll take a break at lunchtime, and maybe you'll get out of the cab. But I know a lot of guys don't. They've got their sarnies in the cab with them, so they'll eat exactly where they're sat. So they might actually do an 8, 9, 10-hour day, not speaking to anyone. Now, as somebody as antisocial as me, that's not a bad thing in itself. Where it is a problem, though, is that I think particularly with a very, very good operator, where the joysticks are kind of an extension of your arms and the machine is an extension of your body, you are so in tune with that machine that your mind is free to wander, and it's free to wander onto things that are bothering you, that are troubling you, that are upsetting you, whatever it might be. And I just question whether the idea of that and I'm not, Caterpillar are not the only company doing this, there are others, but that command system, you imagine if you, rather than going to a site, for a start, the site already has its hazards, falling objects, machines tipping over, and machines running into each other and all those sort of things. But even setting that aside, rather than going to a site, you go to an office, I don't know, like a warehouse space, and maybe there's you and 5, 6, 10, 20 other people all operating machines remotely. But you're all sat side by side. You all know what you're doing, and we all know that we could all talk on the phone and we should not holding it, or we can all talk on the phone, or we can listen to podcasts while we're working. So the very fact that you might have a bank of people where you're sat there, you're operating a dozer or an excavator, there's somebody over here operating a dump truck that may even be on a different site, but you can be, to use the American expression, shooting the shit. You can be having a chat, interacting all of a sudden, not only have you started to make inroads into physical health and well-being, potentially you've made inroads into mental well-being as well, because rather than being isolated, you are going to be working alongside other people. And to my mind, that's a good thing. Love to get your thoughts on it while you're considering that, and well done on the comment, Steve. I like that a lot. Let me go back. I'm not going to do all the hellos because we've done all those. Where is the question of the day? I'm sure it comes in here somewhere. Question of the day, and as I said, this one did come from Gary Muirhead, who is the king of the interesting question. What is the habit you're most proud of breaking or would love to break? Mine, booze, plain and simple. And yes, for the first couple of years, going to a barbecue and being stood there without a beer in my hand felt weird. Got over it, feel better for it. Mick, this one came out of left field. Conformity, he says. Nothing wrong in being different. Listen, I'm sat indoors wearing a pork pie hat. I agree 300%. I agree 300%. Peter McKenna says, would love to pack in the cancer sticks. Yes, Peter is, and unfortunately, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, Peter has breathing problems, also a smoker. Never ceases to amaze me. And I've literally, I realise this probably marks me as a bit of a weirdo, I have never even tried a cigarette. I mean, literally not even a puff out of curiosity. Never tried it. So the idea of it being that difficult to give up, I find so hard to get my head around. But I know my other half, I mean, thankfully, my other half was a smoker when I met her, and was a smoker right up until she fell pregnant with our youngest daughter. And she just woke up and went, that's it, done. Now, she does still, to this day, eat nicotine chewing gum, Nicorette chewing gum, like it's going out of fashion, but she knocked the nail on the head. We'll find out in just a moment. Still misses it. Jim Turner says, question of the day, probably smoking, I suppose. Stopped instantly being told you've got cancer again. We'll do that to you. But it's been over 15 years since I've smoked, and by Christ, I could murder chuff every day. Probably why I'm such a fat person too. Maybe. Yeah, unfortunately, it is often the case, isn't it? You break one habit and it basically gives you another one. Chris Ford, another smoker, gave up 33 years ago, never fancied one since, which is, as I say, opposite of my wife, who would quite happily go back to it tomorrow. In fact, there she is. I gave up smoking but still love the smell, could go back to it at the drop of a hat. I'm going to keep the hat on then, in that case, just to spoil your fun. What else have we got here? Jim Turner says, when the lads get their backy pouches out to roll a fag, I have to have a few seconds with my nose in the pouch. I probably look like some glue bagger. Do you know that there's the funny thing, right? So my dad used to smoke Old Holborn, roll his own, and the smell of that tobacco, not the when he was smoking it, but the smell of it, evocative, nostalgic and everything else. I worked with a guy called Jerry Gosney, who was my first full-time magazine editor when I first started in journalism, and he smoked a pipe, and I can't remember what pipe tobacco he used, but it was incredibly sweet, and being called into his office was an absolute treat. It was like, man alive, that smells good. Cigars on the rare occasions I bump into Paul Brown, the former president of the National Federation of Demolition Contractors. He loves a big sort of big, I was going to say a big Jimmy Savile style cigar. I'm not going to link Paul Brown with Jimmy Savile because they're very different in so many ways. But a big cigar, the smell of cigars, love them. Never tried one, never seen the need. Let's have a look. Whatever. Jim Turner, I'm with you. My father-in-law smoked roll-ups. Bloody lovely smell. See, there you are. Jim Turner says, I've never smoked fags, used to smoke a pipe and cigars, but I like the smell of a rollie. Yeah, funny that, isn't it? Hate the smell of straights, though. Is that just a regular cigarette? See, I don't speak the language. I don't speak fag. I just, It's a thing that passed me by. I hate the smell of weed, but everything else is a joy to my nose. Joy to her nose. Hark at her, sat on a sunbed in the sunshine. Let's have a look. What have we got? We had a quick dwell on XL bullies. We won't dwell on that. Yes, but on the subject of our friend Mick's dog, Ted. My Ted was trained by the army. He may be retired, but he's still aware of his training and his commands. Yeah. Hey, listen, Titan's Demo just joined us over on Instagram. Good morning to you guys. I've got 2 boxer dogs, one of which goes just under 8 stone. A bigger, softer, soppier lump you could not find, really. We're back to this again. The CAT command system with 10mm tolerance is good technology, but to have the same guys working from an office miles from site, no. Why you say that, mate? Why you say that? Because if you think about it, and I've already done the mental bit of this, but I'm going to do the physical bit of this. Easiest way to stop site accidents and site fatalities: pick up all the men and women, put them somewhere else. Leave the machines where they are and operate them remotely, but just take the men and the women away. There you go. No more accidents, no more fatalities. Simple as. So why you not like the idea, Mick? That's what I'd like to know. Let's have a look. Question today. I love the smell of Old Alban. My dad, God rest him, smoked for 70 plus years. He did ever so well. 70 years of smoking. King Edward cigars. Now you're talking. Take back my previous comment. It's funny, isn't it? But Dad used to smoke Old Alban and Golden Virginia. There you are. Maybe it was a dad thing, eh? Question today. Yes, me too. Booze and removed so-called alcohol powers from my life, as every Friday they're going to the pub. Yeah, it got to the point where, I mean, mine was health driven, so I, bit of a health scare, decided to knock the alcohol on the head, and so on. So won't dwell on that. But when you go back, when you actually find yourself in a pub with your friends on a Friday night or a Saturday night or whatever, and everybody's getting louder and louder and spilling drinks, I'm just stood there thinking, I can't believe I used to think this was fun. Weird, right? Mick Norton says, never smoked in my entire life. Love the smell of my grandfather's Erinor Shag Old Holborn Baccy mix in his Meerschaum pipe. Beautiful. Is that Meerschaum? Again, I don't speak fags. I don't have a Duolingo. Let's have a look. Mick says, totally agree with Steve's post. I've always made the blokes work with at least one other person. Then they have someone who they can talk to and share things with, not forgetting the fact that it's wrong to work on your own. Yeah, it is. But herein lies another issue. I featured very early days. In fact, I don't even think this show existed. It was the forerunner to this show. I spoke to a company over in America on one of these types of shows, and they were talking about wearable devices, and they were talking about it monitoring for heart and and whatever. One of the things that they pointed out was, if you are a lone worker and you have a fall, or you pass out, whatever it might be, then that phone will locate you, but it will also identify it will notify the authorities to say somebody has had a trip, a slip, or fall, whatever it might be, and this is where you'll find them. And I remember thinking, should people be working on their own like that anyway? Is that really a good idea? And I told you a couple of days ago, a friend of mine did that. He was a local builder, went to work, bit of 4x2, fell from quite some height, hit him on the head, knocked him out cold. And I'm sadly no longer with this, but when I said to him, how long were you out? He said, could have been 5 minutes, could have been 3 hours. No idea at all, not a clue. He could have died, because he was completely on his own. Had that injury been worse, if he had got a severe concussion, if he had actually fractured his skull, he could have died. So people shouldn't be working on their own. But I think one of the things that's got lost here, we're talking about that very much from a physical well-being point of view. What about that mental thing? And I think that's a great point that Mick's made there. The idea of actually working in conjunction with somebody else. If somebody to talk to, somebody to confide in. Even, and this was a thing that it occurred to me. I remember speaking to AR Demolition about this. They had spent years and years and years encouraging their site teams to basically car share, to keep the cost of diesel and petrol down, basically, nothing more than that. But, you're all going in the same direction. Rather than taking 14 cars to site, try and take 6 vans or 5 vans or whatever it might be, and all arrive together. Then COVID hit, and they then basically had to untrain all of that and say, travel on your own. And I remember thinking at the time, traveling on your own, and I know what I'm like, when I've got a long drive, my mind wanders into, it starts, oh, this is nice music, and it's a lovely day, what a lovely day for a drive, and I'm thinking about what I might do on this show, I'm thinking about what I might do when I get to the other end, and then your mind starts to wander, and you start to ponder, maybe the less positive parts of your life. I think that's an issue, and again, it goes back to the article that I've written today, the Suicide Watch. I think if we are really to address the mental health issues in this industry, we do need to go back to basics and say, this is not the way to protect each other's mental health. Nick Norton says, I used to love the isolation of working alone with heavy equipment, and I found it therapeutic. I'm sure you do. The only exception was working with my armoured Alice Chalmers shovel alone on an unapproved road removal on the Irish border in the early 1970s. My sphincter dictated my well-being at that time. I bet it did. Jim says, I'd rather be in my cab on my own. Being in a room full of other folks sounds like torture. Right now, I'm digging a footing whilst listening to the show and commenting when the dumper takes a load away. All safe and sound. Yeah. Listen, I as I say, I'm an antisocial person. I'd much rather work on my own by and large. But is it necessarily? I mean, and bearing in mind, my job's different. I'll do a couple of hours sat here, and then I'll go next door, and Fred will be sat next door. We'll have a cup of coffee, we'll have a chat, and I'll start planning the work for tomorrow's show, probably with Fred in attendance. But the idea of working 8, 9, 10 hours a day in complete isolation, I'm not sure that's a good thing at all. Where are we going? I'm going up and down the comments here. Would we rather drive machines without cabs? We did years ago, so does that mean we should still have no cabs? Steve, you have no idea. You know that expression, great minds think alike? I've scripted a video that addresses that very point. And I think you're absolutely right. No, I don't think anybody would want to go back to no cabs. I don't think anybody would want to go back to doing 10 hours a day with their rear end on a wooden plank either way. All the way, I think. Yes, Footy, I did see them during the break. He sent me some photographs of Devon, Paynton and Devon. Looks lovely. My son hates it. Hates Devon with a passion. I'm like Jim, been on my own, and I can do things to my spec, and Foreman loves my initiative. Each to their own. Would that necessarily be a good thing, though, if you were having a bad time of things? I mean, I get the very distinct impression that Dan wakes up with, his tail up and he's rearing to go regardless. But if you are one of those people given to mood swings, if you are going to work completely on your own, or you're stuck in a cab completely on your own while you're having some darker thoughts, is that a good thing? I don't believe it is. We listen to iTunes and Spotify. We should go back to tapes and wireless. We all say they were great, but you'd never go back. Yeah. Having said that, do still prefer the sound of vinyl. Just me. Steve says, I can see what's going to happen. Can you? I can see it with GPS. Everything is turning GPS, and the negative people are starting already to be left behind. I've seen it and heard just in the past few months. I'll say it again, don't be negative or you'll get left behind. Yeah. And what I find weirdest with this, I realise we're talking very specifically about this industry, but what I find very, very strange about this is we have all been down this path already. Okay? Think about, we had video recorders which became Blu-ray players, which became DVD players, which became streaming. If you'd had shares in whoever made VHS video cassettes, you'd now be broke because they don't exist anymore. They're gone. We used to take a daily newspaper. Very few people do that now. They get their news online through one source or another. We used to go to record shops and plough through piles of vinyl to find the record that we wanted, but that gave way to tapes, which gave way to CDs, which gave way to streaming services. And yes, there are arguments about the fact that you don't actually own the music anymore, but you basically have the entire music library of the entire world at your fingertips, should you so want it. So we've got all of these precedents that prove that progress happens regardless. And yet, for some reason, there are some people that just want to dig their heels in. Now, I fully understand people like Jim Turner, who is quite happy to break out the spanners. He wants a stripped-down, bare-bones machine that will get the job done. If it breaks down, he wants to be able to get out the spanners and fix it. He doesn't want to bring in diagnostic software and laser screwdrivers or anything like that. I fully understand that. But trying to convince the world that this electric machines, they'll never catch on. They already have it. It's all part of that innovation S curve. We're at the bottom of the curve at the moment, but the time will come, whether it's by choice or by legislation, somebody somewhere along the lines, we've got no choice anymore, and we've got to go electric. So if you're currently sat on the fence, why not just make the leap? Or better still, don't even make the leap. Get yourself along to a Hillhead, get yourself along to a Plant Works or a Balmer or a Conexpo or whatever it might be. Get yourself on an electric machine and then see if you're still convinced that this is not the way forward. Remember when tilt rotators came to the UK? Where are they now? Idiots. The UK isn't ahead, people. We are behind. So the UK has already been on the go, developed years ago in other countries. Yeah, it's all true. All true. And that's one of the things I find odd. And maybe it's just the Britishness of us. I remember bumping into Ricky Webb at East Coast Demolition over at ConExpo, just completely by chance, just bumped into him, and he was talking about quick couplers and all the oil quick and all the things, and I said, they're still pretty much in their infancy here in America. Why? And he said, I actively watch the UK demolition industry to watch what they're doing and to possibly borrow the best ideas. Which, to my mind, makes perfect sense. If there is a country or a company out there that's doing things and you consider them to be doing better, surely it's human nature to watch that and think, I'll replicate that. I've done it. As I said last week, I'm going to be on a podcast with the guy that basically taught me how to do this. We've never met. He's in America. I'm over here. He's black. I'm white. He's religious. I'm not. But he taught me how to do all of this. I've watched him religiously, even though I'm not religious. I've watched him religiously and I've picked up tips from him. And yet, you think about, tilt rotators is a prime example. Tilt rotators and quick couplers. Our friends up in Scandinavia, just a few miles up the road, have been doing it for decades. It's almost bizarre to them that you would have a machine without a tilt rotator. And yet, rather than watching them and thinking, think them Nordics might be onto something, we just sat here and went, nah, no, we're near manly enough. That looks way too easy. Way too easy. Seriously. Dan says, guys, have a wonderful day and stay safe. Drink plenty of fluids and look out for your colleagues on site. Yeah, do drink plenty of fluids. Today might actually be the first day since my wife went away that it doesn't rain. Mick says, we've spoken often about drinks and drugs and other things on the show. All these things add to unsafe practices on site. Have we become blind to the safety of ourselves or in fact others while at work? A few people have said today they prefer to work on their own. People are forgetful to the point of being blind to others. Yeah, it's a good point. It is a good point. And bizarrely, one of the things that I always fall back on, if anybody ever says to me, what is the best thing about working in demolition? Literally the first thing that comes to my head is camaraderie. I've never been in the forces. I've never actually worked I've never actually worked in demolition. But to my mind, that idea of a team where your well-being and your safety and possibly your life is in the hands of those working around you. I think that's almost irreplaceable anywhere in industry. I do think it's greatly to the benefit of the demolition and construction industry, the camaraderie. And yet, why does that not actually help mental health wise? Are we all right putting an arm around somebody's shoulder? You fancy a beer at lunchtime or what? God forbid. Fancy a beer at lunchtime? We'll go for a beer after work or whatever. But somebody says, I'm struggling at the moment. Oh, no, sod that. I'm going to go and jump in a cab on my own. Is that really what it is? Then when they came to the UK, usual. UK was slacking it off. Yeah. And there's an article coming out on Wednesday, 2 days' time. Not talking about that, but talking about, the arrival of Japanese machines, the arrival of Korean machines, and the arrival of Chinese machines. When you've been around for a while, and I have been around for a while, you get to see the same cycles. And listen, I remember, I know you're talking about more modern things here, Steve, with tilt rotators and GPS and quick couplers and whatever. But I remember having to report, and listen, I bought into this completely. I reported on the arrival of the first Japanese import mini excavators. And, I actually remember writing somebody had brought in a real super compact machine. I think it may have been Italian, but it was about 3/4 of a ton, something like that. And I actually said it'd be dead handy for digging over your window box. At the time that I was writing that, I think on a good year, mini excavator sales in the UK amassed to about 300 machines. It's now tens of thousands. I was wrong. And I don't know whether I've learned from that, but I'm now at the point where you can't dismiss stuff. You can't dismiss stuff because if it finds its niche, like tilt rotators, like quick couplers, like GPS, like electric machines, if it finds its niche, it's going to happen. Steve says any tilt rotator op can drive a standard machine, but a standard machine operator can't always use a tilt rotator. End of. Yeah, and what? It's red squirrel, grey squirrel, isn't it? Sooner or later, and British crayfish and American crayfish. I know my wildlife. Sooner or later, the superior species will take over. Just saying. Don't care what anyone says. I've always said this. An operator will struggle to drive a machine with a tilt rotator at the start. Then that say it's easier really need to catch a grip. It's easy going back to a normal machine, then having a tilt rotator and stick GPS in, and your experienced operator won't have a clue at the start. Jim Turner, was he the Italian kid? Yes, Tree. I don't know what that relates to. I love being alone. Being in and on a machine, putting it to work is my most relaxed place to be. I'm more relaxed at work digging than I'm sat at home on the settee watching telly. Yeah, I'm sure. Hey, listen, my happy place is sat here beating the keyboard. Really is. Do it for fun. I said it last week. If I won the lottery that I didn't take part in, I'd still write because that's my happy place. I'd like to learn more about GPS, but my reading doesn't help me. Looks like I'll be left behind then. Given your age, I would say, Footy, that yes, you may well be, because you're in your 60s, and I guess time will be of an essence. But given all that's going on with AI at the moment, you know, we have the capability for you to talk to the machine and for the machine to talk to you. Not been implemented yet, but it exists. If somebody makes the leap, then all of a sudden your concerns over reading and writing, whatever, gone. So long as you can hold a conversation, and I've spoken to you, so I know you can, wouldn't be a problem. Mark, he says, do you recall the small machine they brought over to work on the Prudential building years ago? They said the floor would take the weight. I think it was a Kubota. They're on the same site, an 18-foot standard fell to the ground, hitting someone. I don't remember that. No, I don't remember that. I'm just racking my brains. I don't remember that at all, Mick, I'm afraid. I'll look it up. I'll see if I can find something about that. But I don't remember that at all. Right, people, I am going to call it a day because we've been going for an hour and 20 odd minutes. Full schedule of shows this week. Next week's going to be a bit of a bugger because I'm going to be at Hillhead for a couple of days. But yeah, full schedule of shows this week. Plus, please don't forget, Wednesday night, Gilles René will be here from Caterpillar. I'm literally going through the content for that show at some point today. I've got a meeting with them tomorrow as well. So we're really ready to fire on all cylinders when Wednesday night rolls around. So get your Caterpillar and your Demolition and just get your questions ready, basically. And we'll be here on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We'll be kicking off, myself and Gilles René, and a whole bunch of Caterpillar content for your enjoyment and entertainment. I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. for more of the same. I say it's more of the same. I don't know from one day to the next what I'm going to be talking about, so it might be completely different. We'll see. But I'll be back here 10 a.m. tomorrow. Till then, everybody, please go and do what you do. Do it safely. If you like to do it on your own, do it on your own. But better still, go and have a chat with somebody. It's good to talk. Somebody said that, didn't they? May have been British Telecom, I can't remember. Anyway, go and have a fantastic day. See you tomorrow. Take care.